The European Union took about 40 years to get established. How did it start? To understand that, we need to understand that the European continent has historically been filled with wars and conflicts between its countries. For example, during World War II, France and Britain fought Germany because Germany invaded Poland. And for Germany to attack France, it occupied the Netherlands and Belgium, and that's how European wars used to be. But World War II was different. European countries massively destroyed each other, lost their colonies around the world, and they became economically and militarily dependent on the United States for assistance. They were no longer great powers as they once had been, in terms of economy and influence. In that context, in 1950, the French foreign minister proposed an unconventional idea. He suggested that France and Germany reconcile and jointly manage their coal and steel resources under one shared authority. Why was this important? Coal and steel were fundamental resources for building armies, weapons, and maintaining military strength. So if those strategic resources were under joint control by France and Germany, it would be difficult for either side to build a threatening army without the other knowing. So how did countries react to the French proposal? Germany, which had been devastated physically and spiritually by the war, agreed. We should remember that Germany, under Hitler and the German Empire, had attacked other European countries and now wanted to show that it followed new principles and aimed for peace with its neighbors. So agreeing with France, one of its biggest enemies, was a chance to prove that. The idea of political and economic integration became popular and was supported by Italy, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg, but not Britain. The British didn't want to give up control over strategic resources like coal and steel. Giving up certain rights in exchange for integration and cooperation is one of the core principles of the European project, and all the countries in the Coal and Steel Agreement agreed to that concession. In any case, all of this led to the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 1952, which established the European Coal and Steel Community, the earliest form of the European Union. After the Treaty of Paris, the leaders of these countries went to Italy and signed the Treaty of Rome, which established the European Economic Community, or the EEC. This community was similar to the Coal and Steel Agreement with the same countries, but it expanded to include the free movement of goods, people, services, and capital among them. The treaty also established governing bodies like a Council of Ministers, a Parliamentary Assembly, and a Court of Justice. The EEC deeply connected its members, Italy, France, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. So if a leader in Germany, for example, tried to harm France, that harm would negatively impact Germany's own economy. This helped build trust and reduce tensions. At the same time, the United States was sending aid and investments to European countries, and this, alongside their political and economic integration, helped the member states' economies grow. In this context, other countries saw the advantage of joining the community, especially Denmark and Ireland, but both had strong economic ties with the United Kingdom and could not join without it. So the UK applied to join the community, but France rejected its application. Or more specifically, President Charles de Gaulle did. De Gaulle believed Britain's ties with the British Commonwealth, countries like Canada, South Africa, Australia, and India would complicate Europe's economic balance. He also believed Britain's close ties with the United States would lead to American influence over European decisions. But after de Gaulle resigned from the presidency, France agreed to Britain's application in 1973, and with the United Kingdom, Ireland and Denmark also joined that same year. This was the first expansion of the European community. The community also had important principles that all member states had to follow, such as democracy, free trade, and economic cooperation. The principle of free trade automatically excluded communist Eastern European countries because communism opposes free trade. Democratic governance made it hard for countries like Spain, Portugal, and Greece to join while under dictatorship. And cooperation with the community was difficult for Switzerland, Austria, Sweden, and Finland, which were neutral countries. Joining could have compromised their neutrality. Nonetheless, after dictatorships fell in Greece, Spain, and Portugal, those countries were granted membership in the 1980s. The community was an economic power during the Cold War, and after the collapse of communism in Eastern Europe and the reunification of Germany, countries wanted to expand the community's powers from just an economic entity to a political one as well. This led to the official founding of the European Union in 1992. What's the difference between the European Community and the EU? The former was just an economic group to form a common free market among members, but with the European Union, the member states aimed to have a common foreign policy, to create a monetary union with a shared currency, or the euro, and to establish European citizenship. The European Union also expanded its legal powers. Then came the Schengen area, which removed border checks among certain EU countries. This made trade and travel easier between them. It also opened the borders to Norway and Switzerland, which were not in the EU. As I mentioned, this happened in the context of the collapse of the communist system in Eastern Europe, and those countries gradually reformed toward capitalism and democracy and joined the EU. And today, after Brexit, the European Union consists of 27 countries. And that's how the European Union was established.